Hello everyone, I'm Hairul Bahri and today me and my team, which consists of Asmi Randuvarani and Gandari Pasaribu will be presenting about religion and identity. The first part will be presented by me and then the second part of the video will be presented by Ulandari Pasaribu and the last part will be presented by Asmi Randuvarani. Alright, the first thing we'll be talking about is Hinduism. Hinduism is the there are many paths to the ultimate truth. In Hindu belief, God is one but cannot be fully defined as that would be limiting. God has many different attributes and functions, many names, and is celebrated in many forms. The many names, symbols, and images of God enable people to discover God for themselves. This has led to the popular misconception of Hinduism as many gods. Brahman is a unique, pure, infinite, beyond time and space and omnipresence. As in Hindu, God is revealed in any form of worship. Hinduism is a non-proselytizing religion. Hinduism enables people to cope with life as it is given. Happiness and fulfillment come from discovering one's own dharma or duty and carrying it out the best of one's ability. In Hinduism, the ultimate goal of life is to be liberated from the world by uniting our true nature or Atman and with the Brahman or God. Life then is a journey of discovery in search for perfections. Each soul is potentially defined and destined to become perfect. As we are born many times, each life depends on what we did in our previous life. Thus, we are responsible for our own fate. Through many reincarnations, we can achieve moksha or liberation from the cycle of life and birth and death. In Hindu, yoga is their ritual for uniting one's soul with God through meditations. Silence then is a central part of Hindu philosophy. In the previous chapter, we have read that about silence as a type of nonverbal communication and that Eastern society values silence more than Western societies do. Yoga is the example of this silence as a non-verbal communications. The next part is Buddhism. In one view, Buddhism can be seen as a reaction to Orthodox Hinduism, which tend to focus on the role of divine and supernatural powers in the affair of human beings. In Buddhism, human beings are seen more as their masters of their own destiny. During the 3rd century, Buddhism divided into two main streams. Theravada is more of the conservative streams which preserve the earliest teachings of Buddha, sometimes known as Southern Buddhism. Uh, Theravada Buddhism can be found in Sri Lanka, Myanmar, or Burma, Laos, Cambodia, and Thailand. In Theravada, it is believed that nirvana, a state of pure being, can be reached by only by a few who follow the way strictly and renounce the world. Mahayana, on the other part, which also known as Eastern Buddhism, is found in China, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. In Mahayana Buddhism, the Buddha Gautama is rated as a divine being. Also in Mahayana Buddhism, ordinary Buddhists can attain nirvana while continuing their everyday life. In Buddhism, they follow these four noble truths. The inevitability of suffering atau adversity, which means there is nothing truly satisfying in this world. Life is unhappiness and suffering. The second truth is the source of suffering, which They say we suffer because we have desires, we are greedy and unsatisfied, which this bring unhappiness and conflict. The third is cessations of suffering. These feelings can be eradicated by not becoming attached to anything. And the fourth truth is the path to nirvana. To achieve enlightenment, we can follow the eight right ways: right view, right thinking, right speech, right actions, right livelihood, right diligence, right mindfulness, and right concentrations. While in Mahayana Buddhist teaching, we can improve oneself by following these teachings. First is charity. By being charity, we can gain something more valuable in return. And then we can also follow the five basic moral precepts, which is abstain from taking life, abstain from taking what is not clearly given, abstain from misusing of the sense, to abstain from speaking falsely, and to abstain from intoxicants that cloud the mind. The third teaching is inclusiveness, forbearance, and the capacity to receive and bear insult and sufferings. Inclusiveness teaches us to be compassionate and leads to love and acceptance. And there are also diligence or patience, foster positive thoughts and action through effort and diligence. Meditation and concentration. Meditation help us relax and becoming more in touch with the core of our inner beings. And the lastly is profound wisdom and perfections of understanding. Profound wisdom is free from all knowledge, preconceived notions, habitual patterns, idea, and perspective. And lastly for me is Japan. Japan, it was the state of religion from Meiji Restoration of 1898 until the end of the World War II. It is not much a creed, but it is a link to ancestor as God. Shinto means the way of God, has three prominent ideas: worship the gods of Japan, loyalty to Japan, and cultivation of a pure Japanese spirit. In Japan, except for among the older people, religion is not really a strong force in Japan. Officially, in Japan, there is 66.8% of Buddhists. However, because many people practice both Buddhism and Shintoism, the population is also 79.2% of Shinto, 1.5% Christian, and 7.1% of other religions. Buddhism came to Japan from Korea in the mid-6th century. More than 200 sects of Buddhism exist in Japan with wide difference in doctrines. Buddhism also called the other faith of Japan and the centers on the temple and the family altar. Most households observe some ceremonies from both religions, such as a Shinto wedding and a Buddhist funeral. Overall, religion is more of a social tradition than convictions in Japan. Some churches that do a lack of religious belief, the Japanese have no principle. Meditations, aesthetic appreciations, ritual cleansing, and a respect for nature's beauty and human spot in it are important cultural beliefs. Christianity was brought to Japan by Jesuit missionaries in 1549. Less of the 2% of the population is Christian. Christian lifestyles, moral codes, and ethics have become a part of Japanese life. And that's all from my presentation. The next part will be presented by my friends Wulan and Asmi. Thank you.
Before I continue, let me introduce myself. My name is Wulandari Pasaribu, and I want to presenting about Christianity, Muslim or Islam, and Muhammad the Prophet. Let's start from Christianity. Christianity is the world's largest religion with some 2.17 billion followers, and it started in Palestine on the eastern Mediterranean Sea. In the first century BCE, the Persian Cyrus allowed the Jews to return to Palestine from exile. The region was a mix of beliefs, Judaism, pagan religions, mystery cults, and the Greek schools of philosophical thoughts. The Judaism of that time was strictly monotheistic, with a strong sense of community and restlessness with foreign influences. Based on my religion, Christianity became in this context as a Jewish movement with Jesus of Nazareth. Around the age of 13, he was 30, he was baptized by John the Baptist and received the blessing of God. He began his ministry of teaching and healing. With the position growing, he was crucified by the Romans. After 3 days, women who went to anoint his body reported the tomb was empty and that the angel told to them Jesus had risen from the dead. The disciples later revealed that Jesus appeared to them on several occasions and then ascended into heaven before their eyes. Therefore, the origin Christianity begins with Jesus and his apostles. Nevertheless, it is important to mention that it was only after Jesus' death that the Christian congregation began to grow and increase in number. The apostles and disciples of Jesus briefly defended the truth and preached to people of all nations about the good news found in the ancient scrolls or scriptures. Okay. Sorry. Christianity grew in influence and power. In the remainder of the first century CE, the church grew rapidly, but in the second and third centuries, Christians were persecuted. In the first century CE, the Roman appeared constant convert to Christianity. Persecution ceased as the religion became legal and many convert to Constantine to the emperor's faith, now allied with the Roman Empire. The missionary movement spread worldwide, becoming increasingly multicultural, and Constantine moved the capital of the Roman Empire from Rome to Constantinople. But upon his death, the empire was divided between his two sons. One ruled the western half from Rome, while the other ruled from Constantinople. Over time, religious, cultural, and political differences grew between the Eastern and Western Church over a range of issues, including the use of icons, the nature of the Holy Spirit, and when Easter should be celebrated. Finally, the church has been divided into Roman Catholic and Greek Orthodox. German monk Martin Luther campaigned against the Roman Catholic Church practice of selling indulgences. In the environment of the growing German nationalism and the invention of the printing press, Luther's ideas spread quickly throughout Germany, and similar reforming movement developed in England and Switzerland. Soon Protestant nationalists were fighting Catholic imperialists for religious and political freedom. Next, Islam. Islam is the second largest religion in the world after Christianity, with some 1.7 billion followers, or about uh, 23% of the world's population. The Muslim religion extends far beyond the Arab world, from Africa to Europe to Asia, and including Republic of the former Soviet Union, which had experienced suppression of religion and language. Now some 75 countries have large Muslim populations. People who practice Islam are called Muslim. It is literally submitters to the will of God. According to Islamic law, Muslims may not drink alcohol, beverage, eat pork, or gamble, and in an Islamic prohibition against alcohol, smoking, and premarital sex are strict. Muslims honor Jesus as one of the prophets of the Bible, but not as the son of the God. Muslims generally fall into either this Sunni or the Shiite branch, and Shiite from the majority in Iraq, Iran, Pakistan, and India. Salavism is an ultra-conservative version of Islamic fundamentalism. Salafis are Sunni Muslims who regard the Shiites as infidel and non-believers. Some Salafists are prepared to use violence to change nation and into one Islamic empire or caliphate. Next, Muhammad the Prophet. Muhammad was the prophet and founder of Islam. Most of his early life was spent as a merchant. At age 40, he began to have revelations from Allah that became the basis for the Quran and the foundation of Islam. Muhammad founded the religion of the early 7th century in Arabia. Muslims believe that Islam is a faith that has always existed and that it was gradually revealed to humanity by a number of prophets. But the final and complete revelation of the faith was made through the Prophet Muhammad in the 7th century CE. Muhammad was born in Mecca in Saudi Arabia. He was deeply spiritual man and often spent time in the meditation on Mount Hira. Western ones call Islam Muhammadanism, but Muslims object to the term because Muhammad is not regarded as divine. He is considered the last and most important prophet in a line that includes Abraham, Noah, Moses, and Jesus. For the next part, we'll continue by Asmi. Thank you.
The Quran. The Quran means the recitation in Arabic. Was revealed by God to the Prophet Muhammad in Arabic and generally is considered to contain the verbatim words of Allah or God. The Quran contains stories, admonitions, verse and prophetic segments, and some social, political, and economic laws. It embraces all areas of human affairs, from the most personal to international relations. The Quran is a spiritual guide, a system of law, a code of ethics, and a way of life. Islam is the only world religion that offers rules by which to govern a state, as well as a set of spiritual beliefs. And then there's Sunnah. The Sunnah are the tradition relating to the deeds and utterances of Muhammad. Together with the Quran, They are the basis of Sharia, or Kanakik law. This legal system is different from Western models. The Sharia system relies far less on physical evidence than on the accused's statements and answer to the question posed by judges. Cleric scholars, using the Quran and the acts of Muhammad as their guide, get to the truth through patient questioning. And then anecdotal evidence indicates that the crime rate in the Arab states is low by Western standards. The Quran and Sunnah dictate the specific penalties for some crimes, such as amputating a thief's hand, which is different from Western law. And then religious practice. The 5 religious obligations of Muslims begin with the public witness or shahada, and then short prayers or salah are recited by individuals 5 times daily at intervals from early morning to evening. And then there's almsgiving or zakat, is the duty of sharing with the poor a small percentage of the wealth beyond one's basic expenses. And then entering the Great Mosque in Mecca. Pilgrims walk 7 times around the Kaaba shrine in a counterclockwise direction as a part of the Hajj. Then last, there's fasting or saum is central during Ramadan, the 9th month in Islam's lunar calendar. And then communication barriers. Religion is the oldest source of human identity. The world's major religions are Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, folk religions, and Judaism. A challenge to intercultural communication between some people, both Christian and others, and Muslim in the United States has centered on the use of the term radical Islam. Over the course of 14 centuries, Christians and Muslims have at times lived together and interacted harmoniously, and at other times been in conflict. There are many points of convergence between Christian and Islamic beliefs, such as an understanding of God as a creator, and the centrality of prayer, and values such as justice and loving one's neighbor. But there are also real substantial differences in the faith, such as Christian beliefs in the Trinity and Muslim denial of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. While it is a simplification to attribute all conflicts to difference in beliefs, those religious identities seems to be the most threatened when nation-state and religious identities become one. So, communication barriers between Western and Arab peoples show that each holds significant negative attitudes of the other. And that's all about religion and identity. Thank you.